Okay, so it looks like we're live. So let's go ahead and start talking about discussion one, which is going to be what qualities make a good leader and what qualities make a poor leader. So Brenda, do you want to go ahead and start with your thoughts?
I can start, yeah. So one of the major things I think is that you need to have to be a good leader is the willingness to listen. I think a lot of times leaders don't focus on listening to what the followers are saying. So that's a major thing. And the other thing that I read about was the storytelling, the leaders framing stories by using like personal experiences and things like that kind of help, the followers understand, their point of view and things like that. Also, the major bad qualities, of course, are the selfishness and the narcissism that they talked about in the book. And, and the Machiavellianism, I don't know if I'm saying that right, if somebody wants to correct me, but that to me is probably the worst quality one can possess. It's that, the positive public image, but then behind closed doors, you're doing ethical and unethical things just to attain your goals. So I think when you're not putting, the truth out there, that could be a really bad thing for a group that's trying to basically follow your, follow your, I don't know, wherever you're deciding to, however you're deciding to lead the group. If you're not being truthful, then it's kind of hard to, I don't know, now I'm rambling. But yeah, good. But as far as good leaders, that's basically it. I think you need to be a good listener. You need to definitely realize you're in a group and your position is to understand their points of view as well. So does anybody else want to go?
Do you maybe want to share an experience that you've had in a group, either good or bad?
I think one that came to mind when we were going through this is when we were planning my sister-in-law's baby shower. There was not only my parents, her parents, it was a co-ed thing. There was way too many people involved, and she really wanted me to kind of lead the group. Well, I think that I'm not what they said, born leader. I'm definitely more of I like to follow people's lead and just do what I'm told. But she really wanted my input. So I the first sit down with everyone deciding where it's going to be, what time, all that, it was just a complete nightmare. And I had to kind of come up with a game plan, write everything out, lead the discussions, say, no, this is where we're going to do it. This is what we're going to, what time, and then let me hear your thoughts. So it definitely, the first one was kind of a hard get together. And the second one, I kind of was able to figure it out. But I think I was listening to too many points. I'm not, what are we, the democratic style person. And it was such a larger group that it was too time consuming. And I wasn't focusing on the issues at hand. And then once I kind of got a grasp on that, then everything kind of worked out better.
Yeah.
And it was a great baby shower.
Perfect. So what about you, Jordan? What do you have to say for the discussion?
Okay. I just want to double check if everyone can hear me. For some reason, yes. I still keep thinking I'm cutting out. So I just want to double check. What makes a good leader is listening to other people's opinions. I know that in my work experience, kind of does his own authoritarian thing. It tends to lead to a lot of dissension amongst the group. Of why I know when we talked about the chapter 2 reading responses, what define the authoritarian, democratic, and laissez-faire, and which one is good and bad. I kind of went towards the democratic.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you. I went to the democratic style of leadership, almost, and I found that to be probably the most, helpful type of leadership style. I don't know about the rest of you guys.
No, I agree.
I also touched on. I really heavily touched on what makes a bad leader, because I feel like in this chapter, what makes you can almost learn is wrong as much as you can do. You can learn from what someone does something right. So all these sorts of a list. I'm trying to look it up right now. Where there's 7 different ways someone can be a bad leader, whether it's being selfish, incompetent, rigid,
and then the environmental factors they were talking about, like the pressures and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think I can speak for all of us when we've all run into some sort of leader deficiencies in one of these areas, if not more than one. I know I've had definitely been at least, incompetent is not nearly as bad. I feel like it's someone who is, callous. Incompetent means they're not good at their job, but they don't have malicious intentions. How I looked at it anyways.
Okay, perfect. And did you want to share maybe like a specific story about like an experience you had with a good or a bad leader?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked at a restaurant in high school where the boss, who he meant very well, but he was incredibly rigid, incredibly callous. He did not. He wanted everything done a certain way, but never taught us the correct way to actually do it. So he kind of led us to fail. He didn't give us any of the guidelines to make us succeed, and we all suffered because of it. I mean, it was leadership.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. What about you, Madison?
Yeah, without going too much perspective, because I know that will be our next discussion. I think what makes a good leader is definitely someone who listens. I would agree, but it's also definitely someone who can be the person that is like the support of the group, and not necessarily being authoritarian. However, being able to communicate, start discussions, be on time, and have all those qualities. Because I think if someone is, like I know one of the things the textbook said is like laziness can be a big problem. It just comes to anyone in a group. That's definitely a poor quality, because the leader needs to be motivated. Otherwise, their followers aren't going to be motivated. So that went into the second chapter where it talked about followership. And I put in like the discussion board about how like I feel like followership is just important, because if there's just a leader, then what so definitely the followers kind of can be also considered the leaders.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Did you have a specific story you want to share? Otherwise, we can move on to Savannah.
Sorry, what?
Do you want to share a story about an experience you had with either a good or a bad leader?
Yeah, I can do one real quick. So I guess I like to say that I learned a lot last year. I was the president of the Business Communication Club here on campus, and I learned a lot because as much as people have assumptions of what being president of a club is or something like that, it taught me a lot of, yes, listening, but also teaching, like figuring out what really motivates people. And I thought that was really interesting.
Sweet. All right, Savannah, go ahead.
All right, so there's a lot of qualities in a leader that we look for, and some of you already touched on this, just the communication aspect of a leader, and I totally agree, because I went from, so my first serving job was a total disaster. It was in the owner of the building, or of the restaurant, she hired me, and she was just kind of, I don't know, she didn't communicate with the employees well, so schedules were a mess, and I'd get scheduled when I couldn't work for school or something like that, and she just, I don't know, there were qualities like incompetence and just not really knowing how to run a business in a way, and I think that's important for a leader to have. Because I lean more towards the democratic side of leadership styles, so I not really authoritarian, but you need a leader that knows what they're doing and can, lead the group. And when you have falling outs in those places, it's hard for the followers to succeed, because we, don't know the things that the leader should know. And what I really like about my job here now is that communication aspect. of my job in serving, and it's completely changed my world and how I've grown as a server and how I've grown as a communicator with clients and everything else. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, Terry?
Well, hello, everybody. I pretty much got some notes and talking points, but really in my view, what makes a good leader is somebody who listens and somebody who doesn't jump to conclusions and somebody who is transparent. A lot of times we've had leaders who seem like they're not transparent and they're always trying to hide something, or you get that feeling that they're hiding something. So the more transparent a leader can be, I think the better off everybody is. The more that, like Brenda said, the more they listen rather than try to dominate the conversation or dominate the project. Everybody has good points and good views of something that needs to be done. So I think that definitely helps out. Bad leader would be everything, I guess. I pointed out that made a good leader on some of the notes that I sent out.
Oh yeah, I saw those in our discussion board, yeah.
Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I've led groups where I have to or had to bring groups together, large groups together. And it really was just how people were saying things rather than what they're saying. And at one point, the two groups were arguing, but they're arguing the exact same point. So I had to make it clear that they were arguing the exact same point. It was just how they were saying it that really just set the tone for both sides of the group. So being transparent, how you say things, I think really makes a difference. Showing the empathy towards each individual in your group and really getting to know your people and really just having that emotional intelligence to keep your calm when you need to and don't lead by your emotions rather than lead by what you know is right and what's wrong. So somebody who I've had as a bad leader was not that long ago. The person was very narcissistic, self-fulfilling, and basically led with those types of qualities. Was very strong on self-fulfilling prophecy. So really it was just a lot about self, not group cohesion. So that person is no longer in that position for those reasons. So I think it was very clear that what makes a good leader, what makes a bad leader. And I try to tend to focus on the positives. A bad leader is everything the opposite of maybe what I pointed out or what I'm saying. But it's really good to, in my view, to point out positives and work on those.
Perfect. All right, so we just have just a couple minutes before we hit the 15-minute mark. But basically everything that you guys discussed is exactly where my mindset was at. I know one of you guys kind of touched on being supportive. And in my position that I'm in right now, I get to manage a team of about 10 people every day. And I just really try and be kind of that supportive, democratic type leader that's just, I'm here to kind of bounce ideas off of. I'll always, kind of take people's input and be there. But you have to always remember not to cross the line between being empathetic and democratic to a point where you just let people and your team kind of, take advantage of you and think that it is ultimately their decisions that they're making, because you do have to have those kind of definite rules and guidelines that they will follow, but you also need them to be comfortable and let them know that, you hear them. But at the end of the day, there does have to be one person who's kind of like the person who's making those decisions. So definitely just being supportive, but also kind of battling between not being taken advantage of by your team and also letting them feel like they can talk to you. So, all right, perfect. And it looks like we're just now hitting our 15-minute mark. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this broadcast and then we'll do discussion 2.
Awesome.
No, guys.